Which veteran Dynasty players have gained the most value and benefited the most from the NFL draft? We'll talk about that in today's video. As always, guys, if you enjoy Dynasty content, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 1,300 subscribers. Help us get there. Every single year pre-NFL draft, we all are 100% certain that this team and that team are going to take this position and it's going to hurt this veteran player because they're going to draft a newer, younger, better player. Every single year this happens, and every single year the NFL draft comes and goes, and guess what? A couple of those teams, or several of those teams, don't draft the way we think they're going to draft, and those veteran players turn out to be incredible values pre-NFL draft. That's what we're talking about in today's video. We're starting off with the running back position. We're starting off with DeAndre Swift, who's actually now up to keep trade cut RB28. I made these graphics last night, so they're going to be a little bit off, but he's risen 15 spots basically over the last week. I made a buy low video and posted it either Tuesday or Wednesday before the NFL draft last week, and DeAndre Swift was on that video. And my argument wasn't even that the Bears weren't going to draft a running back. And by the way, they did draft a running back, but it wasn't until round 7. That wasn't my argument because I expected them to. We all expected them to draft maybe even someone as high as number 10 overall, but for sure, someone with they had 2 early second-round picks. We thought for sure they're going to get someone there. But my argument was like, hey, even if they do draft someone, I still think DeAndre Swift is going to be used, and I still think he can be a pretty good player. Go look at what DeAndre Swift did in Detroit. I think we all remember him as an absolute bust in Detroit, and they shipped him off before it. He wasn't a bust. His rookie year, 2020, DeAndre Swift, RB18. 2021, DeAndre Swift was the RB10 in points per game. 2022, under Ben Johnson and the Lions, RB16 in points per game. Now, he missed time all those years, which is probably part of the reason why the Lions moved on. Even in Philly, he was a top 24 running back. Last year, he was a top 21. He was 21st overall in points per game. DeAndre Swift has literally never finished worse than RB24 in points per game. And he had an RB10 season. He had an RB16 season. In his career, he's never finished worse. He's almost like the most disrespected RB2 in the NFL. Now, what I'm trying to argue here is I don't think they're going to use DeAndre Swift like Philly and Chicago have used him the last 2 years. Philly gave him over 250 touches. Chicago gave him almost 300 touches. I think he falls into that 200, 215 touch range, and I think that's where he thrives the best. I think he can catch the ball pretty well. I think he could potentially catch 40, 50 passes. Maybe he gets 5, 6, 7 touchdowns and has 900 to 1,000 total yards. That's what I'm expecting from DeAndre Swift. And he could be even more because they don't really have any running backs on this team. They have Swift and Roschon. They're rumored to maybe, go after Chubb. But even if they go after Chubb, even if they use Roschon a little bit more, even if they use Kyle Monangai, the 7th round rookie a little bit, Swift is going to be, in my opinion, an RB2 this year on a really good offense. So that was my argument for Swift, and it just so happened that they didn't draft anyone. Now you can't buy low on Swift. Now he's shooting up in value, and now people are not going to trade him for probably less than RB2 value because they think, oh, he's the RB1 for Ben Johnson's offense. Sometimes it's good to just take a chance on some of these guys pre-NFL draft. Sometimes it really is. Javonte Williams was also a winner. Now, Javonte hasn't really risen that much. They did draft a running back at Jaden Blue in the 5th round, I believe. Jaden Blue, to me, probably profiles as more like a Tony Pollard at best type of player. And I mean Tony Pollard when he was when Zeke was the main guy. Now, could Jaden Blue be a little bit more? Yes. He's one of my favorite, late round picks for sure in Dynasty rookie drafts. But I would assume that that Jaden Blue is probably Tony Pollard at best year 1. And at most likely, he's more of just like the pass catcher, change of pace guy. Javonte Williams, who's only 25 years old and who has been a complete disappointment since he got injured, he could have a big role here. I mean, even Miles Sanders to a certain extent, but Javonte Williams could have a pretty big role here. It's just, man, can he recapture what we all thought he was going to be? Can the Cowboys be that team that helps him recapture that? I don't know, but I'm willing to take a shot on Javonte Williams, who's still all the way down at RB 47. And so, like, I think you have potential of like an RB2 in fantasy. And if he doesn't work out, well, you don't spend too much on Javonte Williams, right? You don't spend too much on him and you don't invest too much in him. But man, he seems to have the opportunity in front of him. So I think I still like him as a late round, startup pick and trying to get him in a throw in on a trade. Isaiah Pacheco is another player who has benefited. This is another player that I was telling people I've never been the biggest Pacheco guy. He's up, he's RB29 now, according to Keep Trade Cut. I was never a big Pacheco guy, but he was falling to the point where I was like, are we really downgrading Pacheco because he didn't look good after he came back from a broken leg, probably a little bit too early? Like, are we really doing that? Pacheco wasn't good last year. He wasn't good last year, but you look at his start, his first 2 games before he broke his leg, it was his leg, right, or his ankle, 15.8 and 16.1 points per game. Gets injured, comes back, and he's obviously not the same. He just came back too early. He came back in basically like 8 weeks or so. Came back too early and just wasn't the same. And so now the team doesn't draft a running back, another team that we expected to draft a running back. And like I was telling people, like, yeah, I'm not the biggest Pacheco guy, but it's getting to the point where it's like we're all assuming Kansas City's going to take a run. What if they don't? Just like with DeAndre Swift. Now, I was more certain the Bears are going to take a running back than the Chiefs, but like, what if they don't take one? Pacheco's going to be good this year. He's just going to be good this year. And, they drafted Brashard Smith, who's probably more of their pass catcher, but Pacheco's been 2023. He was the RB 14 in points per game. He came on in 2022 a little bit, especially at the second half of the year. So like Pacheco's going to be another RB2 this year. On a team that, hopefully has a better offense. Brian Robinson, another guy that I have never been that high on, but again, just kind of saying, well, what if they don't draft a running back? He benefits the most. He's one of the guys that benefits the most from what didn't happen in the NFL draft. The Commanders did not take a running back until round 7 as well. Commanders were another one of those teams. We all thought, oh, maybe late round 1, they take a shot on a guy like Travion Henderson. Or potentially in late round 2, they get like a Caleb Johnson or a Dylan Sampson. No one until round 7. And so you're looking at another year of probably Brian Robinson. Is he going to be this amazing running back that's going to win you leagues? No, but he's going to be a guy that's probably going to get 220 touches or so. He's probably going to carry the ball close to 200 times. He'll probably catch the ball 20, 25 times. He'll probably get 8+ touchdowns. He'll probably be the goal line back. A lot of probablys, but who's going to take it away from them? I mean, you got Eckler, who's another year older and kind of has his role. Chris Rodriguez, to me, it's just the worst form of Brian Robinson. So, I mean, Brian Robinson to me is going to be that RB3 flex type of play this year on a really good offense in Washington. Chase Brown is the last running back here. I was never really on the boat of like the Bengals were going to take a running back in their first few rounds. I was never really on that side of things. I know people were saying they were meeting with a lot of running backs and stuff like that, and sure, I get it. But they didn't take anyone. They didn't take a running back, and I just kind of expected this. I expected them to go kind of defense, offensive line heavy, and that's what they did. All defense and offensive line, except for round 6 where they took a running back. Right? They took Taj Brooks. To me is more of a at best a Samaje Perine type of replacement. But Chase Brown's going to be good this year. He's just going to do what Joe Mixon always did with the Bengals all those years, and kind of what Chase Brown did last year. I mean, you look at Chase Brown's numbers from, I believe it was week 4 or week 6 where he started to take over. I believe it was week 6. You look at Chase Brown's numbers from week 6 on when basically Zach Moss was out of the picture. Chase Brown was the RB9 and total points, RB7 in points per game. Like, he was awesome. So we're going to get that again. Good for you if you held on to Chase Brown. Into some wide receivers here. Calvin Ridley. I was also on the buy low video. And I was basically saying, look, we know that the Titans are going to draft a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick. That means at best they're getting a wide receiver early second round in a not so great wide receiver draft where we saw Hunter, Ted McMillan, Emeka Ibuka, and Matthew Golden go. We saw the top 4 wide receivers long gone before the Titans were going to pick again. And we kind of predicted that. So at best, they were going to get someone like a Luther Burden or, fill in the blank here, Kyle Williams, whatever. They didn't take a wide receiver until round 4. And my argument for Calvin Ridley was like the same argument I had for Terry McLaurin going into 2024. I was telling people buy low on Terry McLaurin, who got down to this range. He was in this wide receiver 40-ish. He was a little bit higher, but he was like the wide receiver. Go look at where he was according to Keep Trade Cut, Terry McLaurin, during the offseason last year. He was like the wide receiver 40. And I was telling people, look, they're getting a quarterback at the number 2 overall pick. I don't know if it's Daniels or May. This is before the draft. They're getting a quarterback. What if that quarterback's good? Who's going to benefit the most? It's going to be Terry McLaurin. And what happened? Terry McLaurin, basically had a top 10 season last year from week 3 onwards. I kind of see the same with Calvin Ridley here. Now, I think McLaurin's a better wide receiver than Ridley, and I would obviously guess that Daniels is a better quarterback than Cam Ward. But what if Cam Ward's like legit? What if he has a CJ Stroud-like season? Who's going to benefit? Who benefited from CJ Stroud having a good year? It was Nico Collins, right? Who's going to benefit? Who benefited from Jaden Daniels? It was Terry McLaurin. Who's going to benefit if Cam Ward's good? It's freaking Calvin Ridley. Go look at their depth chart. It's not great, guys. Their depth chart is not great. They didn't take a wide receiver until round 4. I'm not really worried about a couple of round 4 wide receivers. Could they be good? Yes. Is it likely? No, especially year 1. I'm talking about this coming year. So you go look at their depth chart. They have Calvin Ridley. Tyler Lockett is their wide receiver 2. I love Tyler Lockett. He was a great wide receiver, but he's going to be 33 years old. Treylon Burks is an absolute bust, is their wide receiver 3. Van Jefferson, Chimere Dike, their 4th-round pick. Alec Iomanner, their 4th-round pick. Like, this guy, man, Calvin Ridley, could be pretty damn good next year. And you go look at that stretch that Ridley had, basically the second half of the year last year, and Ridley actually wasn't bad himself from, like, basically week 8 onwards. Calvin Ridley was the wide receiver 19 in total points. Like, he was a wide receiver too. So, and that was with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. So I was telling people to go buy Calvin Ridley. You still kind of can. He's risen 6 spots. He's still considered the wide receiver 58. Like, this guy could be pretty damn good next year. And I wouldn't be shocked if Calvin Ridley's like a top 24 wide receiver next year. Because Cam Ward's a good player. Jerry Jeudy is another one. We all were locking in Travis Hunter to the Browns, and that didn't happen. And the Browns, I don't believe, drafted really any weapons besides Harold Fannin Jr. So let's see here. The Cleveland Browns drafted, obviously, Dylan Sampson, Quinshon Judkins, Shedeur Sanders, and then Harold Fannin Jr. So Harold Fannin is the only pass catcher they drafted. So now you're looking at a team. I know they brought in Deontay Johnson. I'm not worried about Deontay Johnson. So the Browns are a team where you have Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, and Deontay Johnson as your 1, 2, 3. Obviously, Evan Njoku, who's there, and things like that. But Jerry Jeudy is, especially if Joe Flacco's the starter, could have a massive, massive year. Like, an incredible year last year. He was really good last year. He could have a ridiculously good year this year because Flacco's just going to sling it. So I was telling people to buy low on Jeudy. This was before the draft. This was all the way back in like February. I think we put out a buy, sell, hold video on Jerry Jeudy, maybe all the way back in January, and basically saying I would buy low on Jerry Jeudy, who is still relatively young, coming off a breakout year, is really the only like big threat at wide receiver on this team. Still just turned 26 years old. Still only wide receiver 38. Like, I would be shocked if he's healthy all year, that Jerry Jeudy's not a top 30 wide receiver at worst, right? Like, that's his worst case scenario, right? So Go out and get Jerry Jeudy if you still can, because I don't think people are really believing in him. Cortland Sutton to me was a winner as well. He's gonna, like, there's no competition in my opinion for Cortland Sutton being the number one guy. They go out and get RJ Harvey. They do draft Pat Bryant in the third round. They don't take a tight end. I think we all really expected the Broncos to go out and get a tight end. Like maybe no one fell to them at 20, but maybe even someone in the second round. They didn't really do that. And so Cortland Sutton to me here, clear number one target for Bo Nix, and there's no question whatsoever. So he's just going to have another really good season. Cortland Sutton, kind of an underrated wide receiver, really. Garrett Wilson at the wide receiver 14, according to Keep Trade Cut. He's another one where like all the Jets did was add Mason Taylor in the second round. So like we could be seeing a huge target share for Garrett Wilson. They did add Arian Smith in the fourth round. I'm not too worried about that year one. Like Garrett Wilson, I know he just gets a bunch of targets anyways, and we're not super excited about him with Justin Fields, but we would be way less excited about him if they went out and drafted Ted McMillan in the top 10 or Tyler Warren or, someone else in the second round, right? We would have been way less excited about Garrett Wilson. Now, all you have is Mason Taylor that's coming in, Alan Lazard. Like, it's going to be the Garrett Wilson show and no one else, and that's guaranteed. CeeDee Lamb is a sneaky winner here. This dude's going to get 200-plus targets this year. They did nothing. The Cowboys did nothing. The only skill position player they drafted were two running backs, Jaden Blue in the 5th round and Phil Mafe in the 7th round. No pass catchers, no running backs in the top 4 rounds, no tight ends in a tight end heavy draft. Like, no one. CeeDee Lamb is going to get 200 targets next year. And so he's a winner. I'm not worried about Jalen Tolbert. I'm not worried about Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson will probably be the number 2 target if I had to guess, but CeeDee Lamb, 200 targets incoming. Get ready for it. And then Jalen Waddle. This is a really interesting one to me. Jalen Waddle, again, I think the Dolphins were in contention to maybe get like a Tyler Warren with their first round pick or, just draft someone, whether it was a tight end or wide receiver. You have the rumor swirling of Tyreek Hill potentially being traded. By the way, Tyreek Hill could be, hitting that age cliff as well. I think we're looking at a situation where there's a very clear path to Jalen Waddle being the easy number 1 target for this team. And if this Dolphins offense bounces back a little bit and Tyreek Hill is not here, you could be getting a big, big season from Jalen Waddle. So I think Jalen Waddle is a buy low at the wide receiver 27. He just needs to stay healthy. When he's healthy, he's good. So, by the way, Nick Westbrook-Akine, also a buy low. Go out and grab him, especially if they move on from Tyreek Hill. Now, we're going into the tight ends real quick, guys. If you want to join our Discord, make sure to join it. A lot of questions, trade questions going on there. We put together listener leagues as well. We already have basically 3 put together, and we'll be doing redraft ones. I'm not sure if we're going to do a 4th Dynasty league, but get in there and maybe we will. Appreciate everyone. Tyler Conklin at the tight end position. I don't understand why more content creators, I understand why they're not talking about Tyler Conklin, but I think we have a Tyler Conklin tight end 1 season incoming. I really, really believe that. A low end tight end 1, maybe top 15, but he actually fell 3 spots. And I don't really understand why. Tyler Conklin is the tight end 1 for your Los Angeles Chargers. And just think about the Chargers in general. They made Will Dissly, who, by the way, is still there, but they made Will Dissly a relevant fantasy option. We were talking about Will Dissly as a streamer last year. Will freaking Dissly. Tyler Conklin, you go and look at over the last 4 years, the top tight ends in terms of targets, catches, yards, and you're going to have the usual guys, your Kelseys, your Kittles, and guys like your Andrews and stuff like that. Tyler Conklin's going to be on that list in the top 7, 8, 9, 10, because he's just been actually a pretty consistent, solid receiving tight end. He had 3 straight years from 2021 to 2023 of 87 targets. He had 61 catches, 58, 61, and then 51 last year. 593 yards, 552 yards, 621, 450 yards. Didn't really have the touchdowns there. By the way, he was playing with Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Tyrod Taylor, the carousel of Jets quarterbacks over the last 3 years. Now he goes to a situation where he could be the tight end one. He could be the number 2 target on this team, in my opinion. Justin Herbert targeted the tight ends at a 22% rate last year. He always targets his tight ends. I mean, Justin Herbert even made Gerald Everett kind of fantasy relevant there for a couple of years. Gerald Everett with the Chargers had 60 catches and 550 yards in 2022, 50 catches, 411 yards in 2023. Missing a couple of games. So Tyler Conklin, to me, potential tight end 1 season. I'm not worried about Will Dissly. I'm not worried about Oronde Gadsden, who they drafted. He's a tweener who they drafted in the 6th round. So just, man, the incredible value you can get for Tyler Conklin. I would roll with him. I would sell. In tight ends in general, I'm lower on, especially in non-tight end premiums. I would get a haul for one of my top tier tight ends that I have and just roll with Tyler Conklin and someone else and probably be fine. Brenton Strange is another one. He survived. I thought there was a good chance that the Jacksonville took, Tyler Warren at 5. They obviously traded up and took Travis Hunter, but Brenton Strange has survived. He survived. He should be the tight end 1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. What is that going to mean? I'm not 100% sure, but he's probably going to be a streamable top 15 guy. So Brenton Strange survived this kind of really good draft class for tight ends and should be the tight end 1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Evan Ingram. I think obviously we were consistently mocking Colston Loveland to the Broncos or even Tyler Warren to the Broncos. Didn't happen. Evan Ingram is going to probably be the number 2 target for the Broncos. He's going to catch maybe 80, 90 passes. I don't know what he's going to do with those 80, 90 passes because, he doesn't really do much with those. He always gets targets and catches, but he doesn't really do much with them. Evan Ingram's going to have a good year this year, in my opinion. So he survived, and I don't know, it's kind of year to year with him, but man, we know Sean Payton wants a receiving tight end, and now he has him in Evan Ingram. Theo Johnson is a sneaky one here. Because the Giants didn't draft a wide receiver, and the Giants didn't, a tight end, and they didn't draft a wide receiver either. They drafted, obviously, Jackson Dart, Cam Scadaboo, and then a tight end in the 7th round that I'm not worried about at all. People don't realize this, but Theo Johnson was playing a lot last year, and he started to come on a little bit. I wish he didn't get hurt because we would have maybe seen, a pretty good season from him. But he averaged 84.2% of the snaps last year. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games where he had 85% or more of the snaps. Right? Usually tight ends that are playing 80, 90% of the snaps means they're going to produce. And think of Cade Otton. Think of Cole Kmet there for a few years. These guys just play all the time, and because of that, they kind of fall into 50, 60 catches, 500, 600 yards. That's just what they do. Theo Johnson, to me, is going to be that tight end. If he's back and healthy, he's going to be the tight end here on a team that really still only has Malik Neighbors. I know they brought back Slayton. I know they brought back or they have Wandale, but Theo Johnson to me could be a pretty good tight end this year, and you can get him at a pretty cheap value. Jake Ferguson, I mean, everything I said about CeeDee Lamb, Ferguson benefits from that as well. He's probably the number 2 target on this team. I know he had a down year last year. He went from he caught 0 touchdowns, which was a little bit surprising. Still caught 60 passes, by the way, last year in missing 3 games. So he actually had more the exact same receptions per game as he did in 2023, where he caught 71 passes. He was just down on his yards per reception a little bit. Obviously didn't catch any touchdowns. That was with Cooper Rush and basically playing half the year. So I could see Ferguson bouncing back to his 2023 season, 70 catches, 700 yards, and maybe some more touchdowns. And then Mike Gesicki, still a really good value in my opinion. I think he's going to be, or he is the tight end one for the Colts, or sorry, for the Bengals. That being said, he is going to be a little bit inconsistent because just like I talked about with Theo Johnson and Kate Otten, those guys playing a bunch of snaps. Gesicki, I think it would shock people. Gesicki played less than 50% of the Bengals snaps last year. He had only one game over 70% of the snaps. And usually those are hard to rely on. And that's why you get Gesicki where he gives you 7 for 91. And then he has other games where he gives you 1 for -9 or 0 targets at all, or 1 for 2, 1 catch for 2 yards, right? Like that's why you get those type of games from Gesicki because he doesn't play a lot. That being said, he caught 65 passes, over 650 yards, only 2 touchdowns. To me, he's the wide receiver 3 for this team. And that's how he's going to be playing it. So, that is all I have for you guys. Those are some Dynasty veteran players that survived, that benefited from what didn't happen in the NFL draft. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, guys, and I will see you all